Okay, this movie is a few weeks old. I just saw it a couple of days ago, and even though it has been talked about throughout most of the people, I felt the need to give my own feelings of Total Recall, the 2012 version. I might as well give you my first impression of the trailers as well as the push to get this movie noticed, because there was a lot of good campaign behind Total Recall. They had posters say "Recall, we can make your dreams come true." That was posted all over the subways and on parking lots, including payphones. You also had the trailer, which when I first saw it, I wasn't really impressed. It was not something that I actually said, "Oh yeah, I got to see this film." And that's largely because it looked like they were just basically rehashing the same thing from the original movie, which was starred Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sharon Stone, and pretty much had the premises on Mars, where this one just basically stayed on Earth. So I wasn't really, looking forward to seeing this film. I felt if I am going to see it, it's going to probably be a matinee showing. No, at least I wasn't going to pay extra money to see this film. I must say I was kind of surprised it wasn't in 3D, which I think helped it a little bit, because I think people didn't have to, force themselves to spend money. I know the movie is not doing well in the box office. I don't know if it's going to make their budget back, but in any case, this is a film that I did not had a big high hopes for. In fact, I didn't think this film was going to do any good at all in terms of quality. When I saw the film, I gotta admit I was a little bit surprised on some of the things they gotten right. The special effects, which I wasn't very impressed of. I was actually impressed with the pacing. I was even remotely surprised at how the editing seemed to have worked out fine, because that's one thing I always was wondering about, was pretty much how the editing was going to do with this film. And many people may look at me like, why is the editing so important? Believe me, it's important. If you've seen films with bad editing, it sometimes make a film worse than what it really is. But the editing was pretty good. Pacing was fine. I have to give kudos to the special effects department. They did a great job. However, was this film story-wise and character-wise any good? To me, it didn't impress me too much, to the point where I was like jumping for joy and was screaming, "Wow, this was a great movie!" Because to me, it wasn't that great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't that great. There was a lot of stuff I did enjoy about it, but the acting and the story really, it really didn't kept my interest too much. And here's why. Might as well start off with the movie. The movie is very simple. Quaid is having bad dreams, pretty much like memories that has been suppressed. And that adds to the fact that he's not really happy at home, and he's not happy with a job that which seems to keep him at a dead end. He figures he just get away with it all and tries this place called Recall. His friend, of course, is talking him out of it, but this person pretty much persuaded him to go for it, and because of that, he decides to just give it a try. He goes there and tell him what his wildest fantasy is. He told him he wanted to be a spy, and they was going to give him those type of dreams that he's like a double agent. However, something goes wrong. Apparently, they discovered before they even gave him a chance to put him in the machine that his memory was suppressed, and that he was what he actually wanted to become. Next thing you know, you see a bunch of robot cops and other cops coming in, shooting up the place. They killed off everybody except for him, and just when you think he's about to be arrested and caught over with the police, he ended up killing them, which leads to one of many chases. I mean, this film, pretty much most of the film, with the exception of when they have to slow down and give you explanation, it's mostly one big chase scene. He's being chased out of Recall. He's being chased by Kate Beckinsale, who pretends to be his wife, only she's also an agent hired to watch over him. He's being chased by by all sorts of people, and it wasn't only to the very last scene where actually there was one-on-one combat, but there was more chase scenes in this movie than actual combat, and that's where I had my problem with this film. There was really nothing new it was giving me, and the fact that it was one big chase scene after another, although some were pretty good, some was very intense chase scenes. That's all it really had to offer was the chasing. There was nothing else really that piqued my interest. I did like the fact that it made a couple of references. Well, not really. Almost. There's one I did not like, and I get to that in a minute. But most of the references, it did work out fine because they changed it up a little bit. The 2 week thing when Quaid is dressed as a woman in the last film, and for some reason something went wrong, and he had a throw in the head which exploded. They did the same thing, but in reverse. It wasn't the woman this time, but the person behind him, where they had this ring thing, which I could have sworn they took that from Sherlock Holmes from the 22nd century, because that's exactly what that reminded me of. When I saw when he placed the ring to disguise his face, I'm like, wow. That's Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. I'm probably the only person to remember this because I was like one of the very few that actually watched that animated show. But they had this disguise thing where they disguise your face. And in this one, in the cartoon, was Watson that disguised himself as an android, or in reverse. So this one, he disguised himself, I think, as an Oriental guy, and something happened. They stopped him. And he eventually something went wrong, and you can see his face blurring out, and he actually went past security after that thing failed badly. So they did a good job changing it up. There's other scenes that actually reference the old movie. Of course, you had his friend coming in as a hostage negotiator, tell him he's still in recall. They did a little bit of change there, and that one which worked it well. And pretty much the fact that Kate Beckinsale didn't die in the middle of the act, but pretty much lasted all the way to the very end of the movie, I actually kind of like, because I'm going to be honest with you, Kate Beckinsale character, in my opinion, actually carried this film a lot more than I expected. I didn't expect her to be too much, but just simply fan service, and she was anything but. She really had more action in this movie than I actually expected her to be. In fact, in my opinion, she was more of the villain in this movie than the villain in this movie. And the villain, I'm going to be honest with you, was the most disappointing villain I have ever seen so far this year. He did not need to be here. That's how uninterested I was with this villain. And it's really disappointing because he was there. He knew who Quaid was, or what his agent was supposed to be, and he did pretty much the same role as the other guy. But the difference between him, this villain, and the other villain, who I always refer to as the captain from Beverly Hills Cop, that he did it better. He was more vicious, where this guy, he was just there for one scene, and that's just to die in the end of the movie, and that was it. And I felt very, very disappointed how they portrayed that character. I'd rather just have Kate Beckinsale throughout the whole entire film than just see this guy, because he was just a waste of my time. I'm gonna get back to the one scene I wish they cut off, and there's no surprise here. It's the lady with the 3 breasts. I don't know why she was here. I'm going to be honest with you. There's no reason for her to be on this movie, because, like I said, this film doesn't take place in Mars. Not one time in this movie, except for that one time that they shown, did they actually refer that actually mutants was in this movie. I see mostly humans and robots. That's what I see in this whole film. The robots being built by these factories. They're building these massive android type robots, which, by the way, became a central piece of the film, because in this movie you have a situation where there is supposedly a terrorist attack, and they are trying to justify attacking this colony because of these attacks, when in reality is the government, or this guy, this villain, which name escapes me and which I really honestly don't care, he's purposely arranging these attacks so that way he can come in and take over this colony because there's no room. And when I mean there's no room in the colony, you have pretty much unique premises where you have houses built on top of each other. While you're seeing these chase scenes, he's not only just jumping onto a house, he's actually pretty much jumping onto another neighborhood, which is kind of fascinating. I know people's like wondering how this is possible, but when it comes to the sci-fi universe, the laws of common sense, the laws of continuity, the laws even can this be possible, gets pretty much thrown out the window. This is pretty much their world. And anybody says, how can I say that, is look at Star Trek and look at some of the stuff they're saying. I guarantee you not many people understand what they're saying. This is the same thing. On sci-fi, a lot of stuff gets thrown out the window, a lot of new interventions, so I can actually go by that. And I'm actually kind of fascinated how they change it up from this to the Mars premises. And it was kind of more fascinating that I actually liked the way they did it. So it's overpopulated, and you have a situation where people think it's the terrorists is doing it, but its reality is the government pretty much arranging these so-called terrorist attack so they can justify building more droids and have an invasion. And of course, the person who can stop the invasion is Quaid, because he has a way to do it without by pretty much having a stop system, shutting down all these mechanical police robots from entering the colony. And how would they do this is very simple. And this is the one time I even had to scratch my head, but I left it alone because it was not that big of a deal. They have a machine where it seems to go through the continents by going through the center of the earth, by going to the exact core. And as I seen it, said they're going to the core. Don't they should burn up or something? I mean, how deep is the core? Won't that destroy them? But they never really explained, and I just went with it after that. But apparently they destroyed that machine in the end, which pretty much supposedly stopped the invasion. At least that's what I think it did. But in any case, that was the big plan. And Quaid pretty much stand in the way of their big plan, just like the same thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Quaid, where there was air being controlled by the bad guys, and it was pretty much going to wipe out the mutants permanently. And Quaid was the only one to stand his way because he had the key to figure out how to put an end to the bad guys' reign. The same thing applies here, only now is more about land because of the overpopulation. Did it work? It was fine. I didn't really much. I can pretty much buy into the overall premise of the story because, like I said, they made it very clear that they was pretty much using any type of space necessary to live at, because everybody was pretty much crammed on top of each other. You have like pretty much, I believe, the high class, the wealthy class, living on ground level, while everybody was living up, pretty much on the sky levels. And they really do a good job showing that. They really do with the effects and how everything is tip-top shape. It really does show the different class, as well as how these living arrangements can be accomplished. I thought I was watching the Jetsons show pretty much when I saw it, but it was not in a bad way. I actually was very impressed with of how they came about doing that. However, besides that, besides the overall special effects, which they get high points for, the pacing, it still disappointed me because, like, again, the story wasn't all that. I mean, like I said, all it was a big chase scene. When you sit down and you watch it, okay, now we gotta go to a chase scene. He's escaping these people to go to this place. He's escaping them again, only to be in this place. And by the time we reach the end, it's like, okay, all these chase scenes we get to leading to this one big epic fight, which was a huge letdown, with the exception of the ending with Kate Beckinsale and Quaid fighting one last time. It's just the story. It was there, but it just wasn't enough for me to say, okay, this was a great story. To me, it was just typical chase scene. That's all I saw from this film. It was just nothing else that I can actually grab onto, and I was very much disappointed because I really wanted to have more of a story, strong built premises, and it had an opportunity to do that, but the story didn't really grab on because maybe perhaps because I saw the 1990 version and it was actually more better than this version, in terms of storytelling wise, in terms of the charm that it had. But this one, it just wasn't really for me. I think the newer audience will probably like this more than I did. But in terms of my quality with this film, it just wasn't there in terms of how they went about telling the story overall. The characters, again, this was a big hurt. Beckinsale, I actually thought I was a little bit impressed by her in this movie. I'm not a big fan of hers. I'm not pretty much a fan of the Underworld series. But in this film, I actually thought she carried the villain part pretty well. I actually liked her as the bad guy in this movie, more so than I liked the bad guy who was supposed to be the bad guy in this film. But at least they kept her throughout the whole entire film, which bumped it up pretty much a little bit in terms of character quality, but not by much. I didn't care for nobody else in this film. I didn't care for the main character. I didn't care for Jessica Biel's character. I didn't even care for a guy who I actually liked watching when he was when I saw him in Ray. I did not care for nobody else in this film, perhaps for Kate Beckinsale, who really didn't really care about the character. She wanted Quaid dead. She didn't care what her boss said. She didn't care what the consequences were, because she made it very clear if Quaid succeeds in what he's going to do, it can ruin everything. It can ruin their career is done, and she knew it, and she was not about to take that risk. I mean, there's a scene where she took a bomb, and literally, I'm like, okay, how the hell are they gonna get out of this? And why you set a timer for so long is beyond me. But she threw it on the elevator. You got these different moving elevators, and she just threw it on the elevator, and it just basically exploded. And you saw the disappointing look in her face when he didn't get her, when he didn't get him, and his girlfriend, and she made it very clear. Her motivation is very, very different than the motivation of her boss, because the reason why he wanted to kill her is out of jealousy. And she made that known when he's chasing her into into the house he was in to get more information. Turns out he was also a good piano player, and after he got the information from the holographic images that was hidden in the piano, there was a major chase scene again. But during the chase scene, they had a chance to do a little story about pretty much why he wants him dead. And it's basically over jealousy, because he's considered the top agent. He knows how to get his man, and even though she's not saying that it makes her sick, you pretty much knew right there that this is jealousy. She wants to be the top dog, and she's trying to justify killing him because in her eyes, he's a traitor. And I can get that. I mean, she wants to be powerful. She wants to be, the big dog. So I can actually understand that. From a villain point of view, she's not willing to share power. So her motivation to kill him is actually more interesting than the motivation of this big boss. Simply because the fact is he's barely in the film. He's, you see him in news reports saying, "Oh, we're trying to do this to protect the citizens and everything else," which you pretty much know he's still going to be the gist of the story. But when he finally gets there, it's like, okay, he's here and he's just not doing anything. That's basically what it is. He didn't really do much, and when that fight finally happened, it was just pointless to me. It was just very pointless. Again, it's all about characters with this film, and unfortunately, I didn't really care much about the character in this film. That's not the need to say it's a terrible film. It's probably just not for me, because I'm probably still stuck on the 1990s Total Recall. It is a great movie in my eyes, still stands out well. But in terms of this film, I will not say it's the worst of the Arnold Schwarzenegger's films they remade. I still have to give that to Conan the Barbarian. It's not a bad film. It's not terrible. I thought this was going to be a complete disaster, and it turns out that they had done some good in this film. The special effects, I give them credit for. I thought the effects and how they brought this world was quite interesting. But it really wasn't the effects. You can't really rely on just effects alone. You have to still have a good story, and despite it following through, I just wasn't really interested into the story and the characters. Really, with the exception of Kate Beckinsale, I really didn't care about nobody else in this film. I had no real interest in watching these characters. And the fact that they basically did was a big car chase scene. I really don't know what else to say except that, okay, if you like special effects and sci-fi, and if you haven't even seen the 1990s Total Recall, because I think this film honestly works better if someone sees it blindly without even having any acknowledgement of the original Total Recall. Because I got news for you, a lot of people who liked it really didn't even see the original, or pretty much don't even like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, especially if they have seen the films after, I believe, End of Days. Because I don't think a lot of people really, you don't hear too many people talk, at least the newcomers, talk very fondly about Schwarzenegger films, as if you will talk to a person growing up in the 80s and 90s and the early 90s. It's just what it is. But I think they will like this more than the person who likes the original Total Recall, like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, the good and the bad, and will just come in here, knowing what the overall theme of the movie is, and just don't care for it. And that's the big issue with this film. I think this is more catered to a newer crowd than to the old crowd, and I have no problem with that. I think this film, it will find its fan base slowly but surely with the newer generation. Again, I don't know why they had that the three breasted girl in there. There's no mutants in this film. There's no reason to have that. Unless you're going to really seriously explain why she has 3 breasts, there was really no reason to keep her there. My only conclusion is that they wanted to please the fanboys out there, or fangirls too, but they didn't really need to have that girl there. They could have edited that whole thing out, and I guarantee it would not made a lick of a difference. Another thing about this film is, and I'm going to say this now, I don't really care about PG-13 films with terms of action, adventure films, depending on how they go about it. It didn't, even if this film was BR, I probably would have given it the same rating anyway. But if you're going to make a film PG-13, make the film PG-13. This film pretty much tried its best to get an R, only to push it back. From the 3-breast lady to them saying the F-bomb. I don't know how many times you have to say the F-bomb to actually get an R rating for strong language, but they did use a lot of good strong language in this movie, and they definitely cut back on the blood, although you can they do show you some headshots. So I'm kind of wondering if you're gonna make an R, just make it R. If you're gonna make it PG, fine, but if you're gonna tease us with all these the breast scenes and the F-bombs and the other swear words and the graphic death, just make it R. This is my own feedback toward that. I really get bothered, not as much as films becoming R than come PG-13, but how studios tend to keep playing with the rating system with that. It always ignores me that they play the rating system. Look, there are certain films for certain people. I don't care if it's R or PG-13, as long as you give us a justified reason why it's R and PG-13. When you film like this, can easily piss off a lot of people, especially for parents who want to take their kids to see a film that doesn't show strong adult materials. Just a thought. Just want to throw it out there and let you guys comment on that as well as the movie. So, what's my final rating of this movie? Like I said, it's not terrible. I thought the worst of this film, and surprisingly, I got a lot of good with this film. I also got a lot of not so good with this film. So, like I said, the effects get some points. Kate Beckinsale, man, she tried hard. I tell you that. She was really the only character that I actually wanted to see how far they would take her. And to me, I wasn't disappointed by her. If anything, she made a better villain than the villain himself. So I give that points to her. The editing and the pacing was fine. I thought the editing and pacing was fine. It gets points for that. But that's as far as I'm going to go with this film. The story wasn't something that piqued my interest from beginning to end. The actors, the characters in this movie, may I say, with the exception of Kate Beckinsale, I didn't really care for. And that's largely because when you come back and look at this film, it's nothing more than cops chasing a fugitive, or just basically one. It's basically a one big chase scene. That's basically what it is. That's the best I can say. So 2.5 stars. Surprisingly enough, this film is a not bad, could have been better film. But like I said, I think this is more for the newer crowd. I don't think the people who saw the 1990s version is gonna open their arms to this film. Mind you, it's not a terrible film. It's not gonna be in my worst list. But it's definitely a film that, for what it's worth, um, didn't just reach my expectations for other reasons. So 2.5 stars, but I do recommend you take it with a grain of salt. You may actually like it for what it is. It definitely makes for a good popcorn film. It's not something that I say I waste my time with. I did enjoy the how they changed things up. I didn't really miss Mars. Mars really wasn't a factor here. I did like the special effects very, very much. And again, top notch to those guys. They did a very good job. I just wish the story was a lot more stronger than what I got. I just wish the characters were a lot more stronger than what I got. And I just wish they had a better climactic ending than what I got. So that's pretty much my feelings on this. Did you see the movie? Did you not see the movie? Let me know what you guys thought about the movie. Did you agree with me, disagree with me, and let me know on the comment section. Until then, this is J77 saying take care and be safe.